Okay, here we are finishing up our bingo card. I'm going to scroll down a bit. Maybe I'm going to go right before this toString. We're going to add it in a move method to allow the user to enter a number, and it will replace the number in their card with an X. So what are we coding? We're coding a move. What information do we need to know in order to code this move? Well, we need to know what number the user typed in the text box. So that is my parameter. What information? Well, we also need the card, but that's already a class variable, so we don't have to use that as a parameter. So we're going to replace this number with a 0 in our card. What information will we need to return? Well, nothing, because I'm just changing an item in our card. Then we do have to have public on the front of this. Okay, so that is what my function prototype looks like. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we are going to iterate through our for loop, our card. You can do that either across or up and down. I'm going to do rows first. If you already know how to do this, please pause the video and do this on your own. For int r equals 0, r is less than card.length, semicolon, r row plus plus. Do the same thing with my columns. For int c equals 0, c is less than card of 0 dot length, c plus plus. Okay, so in here, I'm really just searching for that value. All I need is an if statement, and then I'm done with this method. So we'll say if card of that row and of that column happens to be equal, double equals, to the number, then I've found the value. So I'm going to set card of that row of that value equal to a 0. There it is. This bracket right here ends the if. This bracket right here ends the inner loop. This bracket right here ends the outer loop. And this bracket right here ends move. Okay, that is in there, that is coded. Let's test it out. I'm going back to my bingo card GUI, and I'm here in my action performed event. This is my button. So in my button, let's make this a little bigger so you can kind of see. I want to get the value that's in the text box, and I want to send that to my move method. So I'm going to say int, this is going to be the number that they're entering in. Move that mouse out of the way. Equals integer dot parse int. My text box is called txt number dot get text. There we go. That gets me my number. And I have to do this integer dot parse int because remember txt number dot get text just gets text. Okay, my object is called game. We did that when we said bingo card, game equals new bingo card. So I'm going to say game dot move, send it num. Last thing I want to do is update my txt bingo card so it displays a second time. I'm just going to copy that code in and paste it in or type it in. So this should now work. If I run this, got my little bingo card somewhere showing up, there it is. If I type in this 34 right here and press enter, it'll change that to an X. There's my 39, change that one to an X. It doesn't quite yet say you win though. So let's code that part. Okay, so next part, I need to be able to determine if they've won or not. So I'm going to come in here and we're going to ask the question of what are we trying to solve? Well, we want to see if they've won, if won. What information do we need to see if they've won or not? Well, we just need to look at the grid. We already have the grid as our class, so really we don't have any parameters in this particular method. Okay. Now what type of information gets returned? Well, if they've won, I'm going to say true that they've won, or I'm going to say false that they have not won. So the type is going to be a Boolean. Okay, then I have to have access to this from main, so I'm going to say public Boolean if won. Okay, this one's not too bad. All we have to do is sum up the first row, because remember, if they've put a little bean on their card, all we did was set that value to 0. So if the sum of the first row is 0, then that means they've won. And if we stick that into a for loop multiple times, then it will determine if all of the rows have won. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to create a couple of variables, int sum across, and start that at 0. I'm going to do the same thing for sum up and down. And I'm going to do the same thing for diagonal right and diagonal left. Now I'm going to iterate through my entire 2D array. Okay, pause the video if you know how to do those loops. Do those on your own. You know, anytime you're dealing with 2D arrays, it's always a good idea just to have this exact code commented out someplace in your code so you can just copy and paste it in a couple more times, because you end up using it over and over again. Okay, so there is my for loop inside of my for loop. What I want to do now is I want to sum the acrosses. So I'm going to say sum across plus equals card of that row and of that column. There we go. Now I can do actually the same logic if I want to sum up and down. Sum down plus equals card, but this time instead of doing row column, I'm going to do column row. And the reason why is if this outer loop is here, it's iterating across. If this outer loop is here, it's iterating up and down. So this is now going to sum up and down. Okay, next thing we're going to do is, well, that's it for this inner loop. So let's put in some comments. This ends the inner loop. This bracket right here ends the outer loop. But between those two loops, I want to see if I've won. All right, so I'm going to put a little comment here that says check when. Check to see if those are 0, right there. Before I do that, I also want to sum up the diagonal right and the diagonal left. Okay, so I'm going to move this up so we could kind of see the whole method inside this window. So here's where I'm going to check to see if they're all 0. Before that, I want to do the same logic, but for up and for diagonal. So I'm going to say diag right plus equals card, but this time I don't have access to this C variable because I'm out of that loop. All I need is the 0, 0, the 1, 1, the 2, 2, the 3, 3, and the 4, 4 position. I can do that with R. I could just say R, R. Sum plus equals RR, because that will give me down and to the right. Now I can do the same exact logic for diag left, except for I don't want 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2. I want the inverse. I want 0, 4, 1, 3, 2, 2. Oh, I can't do this in my head. Sorry, but you get the idea. So one's going up and one's going down. Well, we know 0, 1, 2, 3. That's already R. To find the inverse of that, all we have to do is take 4 and subtract R from that, because when R is 0, that will give us 4. 4 minus 0 is 4. When this is 1, 4 minus 1 is 3. So this is counting 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, so now all of these variables are done. All I have to do is, in here, do an if statement to see if any of those are 0. So if sum across equals 0, remember the symbol for OR? You hold your shift key down and that key right above the enter key, put two of those in, that's the OR. So if the sum across is 0 or the sum down equals 0, or the sum, or diag right. Diag right equals 0, or diag left equals 0. If any of those are 0, I'm going to say return true. That's not true. True. There we go. Return true. That lets them know that, hey, we just won. Anything else, my default is going to be return false. But before I put that in, I need to set my sum across equal to 0 and my sum down equal to 0. That way it can start on the next iteration of this particular one. Is this logic going to work? This logic is totally not going to work. Sorry. I'm going to keep this in. The only thing I can't do is these two right here. And the reason why is I want to check after it's gotten through this entire situation. Otherwise, suppose the upper left corner 0, 0 is left, then diag right would be 0 and it would say they won even though they didn't get the whole row. So get rid of those guys right there. Okay, now our logic's going to work. Then right here, I have to say sum across equals 0 and sum down equals, not, this is a single equal this time. And the reason why I have to put that as 0 is after it checks the first row, we want to set those sums back to 0 so it can go through and check the second column, and the third column, then the fourth column. Okay, so this ends the outer loop. This bracket right here ends the is win or check win. I can't remember what it's called. But between those, that's where I can either return true or return false. So here, if diag right equals 0 or diag left equals 0, then return true. The default, anything else, if it hasn't returned true any other place, is return false. You can put it into an else, you don't even have to. You can just say return false, because if it hasn't returned by this point, then there's no way it's won. Okay, so then there's the end is win. This file should currently compile. Nice. Let's go get it into our bingo game with one or two last lines of code. Let's do an if statement here. If game dot is, did we call it is win or check win? Anyone remember is win? If one. We called it if one. How am I supposed to remember that? Game dot if one. Then we'll do a little J option pane. J option pane dot show message dialog. I can never spell the word dialogue. D-I-A-L-O-G. You win. There we go. Okay, so this should now work. Compiled, yay, that's always a good sign. Run this. Comes up. Here's our cute little bingo card. I'm going to do the one with the free space. So I'm going to say 42. That will give me that spot. 44 will give me the next one. I've got a 32 in there and a 33. And it comes up with this cute little message that says, you win. Okay, thanks for playing bingo with me today, and we will see you in class.